Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Mikalatos, the author of the young adult novel, The Crescent Stone, and we've been interviewing different authors who I enjoy every week. And this week, I'm very pleased to say that we have Anne Nesbet, the author of Daring Darleen, Queen of the Screen, with us. Hey, Anne, welcome. This week, I'm very pleased to say that we have Anne Nesbet, the author of Daring Darleen. It's so funny. We've been talking for a while and not getting an echo, and suddenly we are.
I know, we're getting an echo, so I think we have to let me see what's going on.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. We've been talking for a while and not getting an echo, and suddenly.
I know, we're getting an echo, so I think we have to let me see what's going on.
Let's see. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. And do you happen to have headphones? I wonder if that would help us. Or is it stopped?
I don't, but I think it's gone. Is it gone?
It's gone. Amazing. Yeah. It was just a weird moment. Maybe it's just because we went live. I don't know.
Yeah.
And welcome. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No, I'm sure it was my fault.
We've come a long way since 1915, but not far enough, apparently.
Well, technology is always difficult, wherever you are in the history of it. Hi there.
Yeah, this is my daughter, Micah.
Hi, Micah. Nice to meet you.
She just went and got bagels. Okay.
Oh, wow, that's great.
We've got a couple people saying hello here. So the Scales family is with us. They say hello. Happy Friday. We're very excited to hear from Ms. Nesbet. Her book sounds very entertaining. And then some emoji there.
Thank you.
And Kirk says, hey, hey. And Caitlin is here. She says hello. You guys, I just finished this book today, and it is really, really fun. I know you'll like it. I'm excited to talk about it with Anne. Anne, tell us a little bit about, now this is your 6th novel.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your writing career. How'd you get into writing? Did you always love it? Did you just fell into it? What happened?
Yeah, so I always loved it. I was always writing. For a long time, I wrote long science fiction novels for adults that didn't get published. At some point, now quite a while ago, I decided to write a kid's book. I was actually on sabbatical in Paris with my family at the time, and we were walking by a house that was really, really weird looking and had sculptures of vines and cows' heads on it, and it was just the most amazing place. And I thought, well, if there were going to be a group of wicked magicians, this is the house where they would meet in. And so I wrote the first kids book, which was The Cabinet of Earths, and haven't stopped yet.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. A couple more people saying hello here. So Jen is here with us. She says hi. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
And then Elizabeth here says, Heidi Kitty heard your voice and came dashing into the room to watch.
Oh, go Heidi Kitty. The feline market for young adult and middle grade literature is always underestimated.
We cannot be far from there being a market for animals, it seems to me.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Anne, tell us the basic idea of Daring Darleen, Queen of the Screen. What is the book about?
So I had this idea while I was walking to my class. My day job is I teach film history at UC Berkeley. And that week we were watching adventure serials, which were this huge fad in the teens. So they often had young women starring, and they would have to do all sorts of daring things like jump off locomotives and ride motorcycles off piers into the water and climb buildings and cliffs and so on. And sometimes they would end on a cliffhanger ending. The idea was that of the serial was that you would just keep people coming back again and again and again and again. It was part of film becoming a big business. So I was walking into class and I thought, gosh, actually, this would make a really fun world to set a kids book in. And I've even done some of the research by teaching this class. So, so it was a pleasure to dive more deeply into the world of Fort Lee, New Jersey in 1914.
Yeah.
Today. My own specialty was Russian and Soviet film. So, I'd been to a lot of silent film festivals and I'd watched a lot of films set in Fort Lee, New Jersey. But digging into the documents was really a treat.
Now, I'm guessing we have a few people who have not seen a silent film. So how it worked, right, was that you could see characters talking and then there'd be title cards that would come up to kind of tell you what they were saying. Is that right?
Well, sometimes there would be, right? I mean, one thing we have to remember is that at the time, they didn't think they were making silent film. They thought they were making movies.
Right. Well, they were, yeah.
Right. So, silent films, actually, every possible kind of film that you can think of existed during the silent era. And there was so much variety. Some would have no titles, and very early on, titles were actually quite rare. And then as films got longer, they would insert title cards to sort of let you know what was going on. Gradually, sometimes those title cards would turn into more of a dialogue, as in the theater. In fact, at about the time that this book is set, 1914, not only was silent film becoming more a big business and they wanted to, bring everyone in, but another move was to make silent film seem more like the big budget theater, so to get people willing to pay Broadway prices to go to see a movie. And so they tried to make films look more like theater for that, like have screenplays with more dialogue. And so you can actually see a shift in the feature films and the way that titles are being used as you go into the 20s.
That's interesting. And a lot of theaters had live music, right? Like they would have
almost always, if you were seeing a silent film, the experience would not be silent. You would actually have somebody there. Again, it depends on whether you're in a little podunk theater somewhere. Maybe you have somebody on a piano out of tune, which was how Shostakovich, by the way, got his start, was accompanying silent film. Or you might be in a big metropolis and go to a really fancy theater, and there would be like a 20-something piece orchestra, and you might have some music before your film and maybe a short film, then more music, and then a feature film after the intermission. So all sorts of experiences, all sorts of music. And one thing I really do recommend is once we're past this coronavirus phase of our lives, when movies come back to the theaters and when silent films start coming back every now and then to some, theater near you, you should go see a classic silent film with live music, because it's an experience like nothing else. Is so great.
Yeah.
For some people, the transition to sound was actually a loss in quality because suddenly you were having like tinny recorded music on your film instead of the live music that they had come to appreciate.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell us a little bit. Darleen, our main character, stars in these adventure serials. Her family makes the films. So every week she's hanging off a cliff, she's jumping off a car, she's doing something.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of really wonderful things about family and friendship and the history of movies in this book. But what is kind of the main action that starts our novel off here? What happens to Darleen?
Right. So the main action has to do with this, rise of film as a big business. They decide that what they want to do is to promote the series, The Dangers of Darleen. They are going to have an episode screened at the opening of the beautiful new Strand Theater in New York, which is a real thing that really happened on that day in April 1914. And they're going to have the Darleen kidnapped at this opening of the Strand Theater, and then they're going to play with the fake kidnapping throughout the week as they make the next serial, and it will hopefully be covered in the newspaper, and people will just be so excited that they will all, of course, come to the theater next week and the week after to see how things turn out. So it's an advertising stunt, and there were a lot of advertising stunts that these young actresses were asked to do. Sometimes they had to like climb down the sides of buildings or actually do automobile or even airplanes and so on. But of course, this is a melodrama, my book, so it goes awry, and the fake kidnapping turns out to be a real kidnapping. The wires are crossed, and she ends up being kidnapped with an heiress, Victorine Berryman. And the two girls have to use their very different gifts and skills to find their way out of this melodramatic situation.
And it's delightful. It's really wonderful. And one of the things I love about Victorine, and this isn't like a spoiler, you discover this in the first few pages after you meet her. So I have a character in one of my books who has made a vow never to tell a lie, and it brings all these really fun things in.
Hey.
And so I'm reading Victorine, and same thing. She thinks lies just cause trouble, and so she'll never tell a lie and it makes you realize how often the first instinct to get out of an issue is like, well, we could just lie about it. And she's like, oh no, we would never do that. So it really alters the direction of the plot sometimes, because we can't tell a lie. How do we tell the truth and get out of this? Which I just thought was really wonderful.
So I'm wondering, what was it that spurred you to have a character who wanted not to tell lies?
So I had this character who was, he's grieving. He has a family loss in his recent past, and he told a lie to cover for his sister. And she ends up getting harmed because of it. So he says, I'm never going to tell a lie again.
Right.
And so it's part of him. For him, he's working through his grieving process as part of it. But he's also, he has no ability to he doesn't stop and think before he says things. Right. So he's constantly volunteering things he doesn't need to say also.
Right.
But it brought so much energy and excitement to the story that you're like, well, like a bad guy. Well, there's a plot point in Daring Darleen where it's like the bad guys want to know a certain thing, and she's going to volunteer it if they ask her. Oh yeah, I was like, oh no, please don't.
And Darleen is like, no.
Right, and Darlene's like, we all lie. I'm in the movies.
Yeah,
but lying is just part of what we do.
Yeah.
So I love that too, though, because it brought the kids. The kids are really the girls are really different in a lot of ways. They bond really quickly. And they make this amazing team, but it was really fun to watch them kind of learning from each other about each other's worlds, about how to deal with problems. And they're kind of unfailingly supportive of each other, which is refreshing to see in a book. They're not fighting with each other. They're like, you're really wonderful. You can do this, which I just love that.
Well, I think the thing that I love about their friendship is that they really bring out the strengths of each other, and they appreciate those things.
Yeah.
And a good friend will really do that for you, kind of be a mirror, kind of optimistic mirror that says, you know what, you're doing okay. You're really good at these things. And each of them tends to underestimate herself a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So they both need these mirrors, especially in 1914, when young women who have some ambitions to make their own way in their lives have a lot of things that they have to struggle against to make that happen. So that's one reason I wanted them to reflect strength for each other. I
feel like what was wonderful too is they're both really kind. Like I love this was like it wasn't a throwaway moment, but it's just a few sentences where Darlene's sort of undercover toward the beginning of the book going into the movie, and a young fan recognizes her, and she dealt with him with such kindness. Like she can't go like, oh yes, it's me, but she's so kindly let him know, like wink, wink, yes, it's me.
Let the bad guys know I'm here.
Right. It was so cute. And I think I just love that. There's a lot of young adult literature particularly, but I see it in middle grade too, where the kids are kids who they hate each other, and part of the plot is, are they going to learn to work together? But I loved that your kids are both really kind and love each other basically right off the bat. And it's more about, how do we fight everything that's against us in the world? Which
Right.
I think is more reality for most kids today, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed that.
So you just think about lies for just one more moment. You know, when I was thinking about that, one of the things that spurred me on was I went through this phase of really noticing whenever I didn't tell the truth. And it's kind of astonishing how often we don't tell the truth in an average day, even when we don't really need to. There
and
we
for
are.
Even like tiny things. Yeah.
Tiny. I guess that's part of human nature. We just like a good story, and so we're always going in that direction. But that was one of the things I was thinking about when I thought of Victorine and her kind of idealistic goal to always not to tell a lie, to always tell the truth. And I thought with movie making, she would be put into all sorts of difficulties as her basic goal.
Right. Yeah, I loved it. Hey, just a quick reminder, if this is your first time with us, I do buy a book to send to one of our listeners every week. And the way I do that is everyone who likes or comments on the video in the next week or so, I'll go through and it's okay. You can like and comment multiple times. That's fine. And what I do is I put it all into a random number generator. We pick somebody out, and then I'll get the book to you. I'll reach out to you to get a hold of you. So please feel free to leave comments. Here's a couple more here. Patrick saying hello. Hey, Patrick. Kirk says your class sounds amazing. That's at UC Berkeley, Kirk. So
there you go. Right.
Get down there. Dawn says, I really like the book cover. I do too. I think it's really fun.
You know who made the cover?
I don't.
Ed Hellquist, who did the Lemony Snicket books.
Oh, really? Yeah. You know, what I love that you can't see on the internet is that on the side, it's like a film strip, which is just lovely. Really nice.
That's
and
my favorite thing.
Little details, like if you look closely, like these are like the little flourishes they put on title cards back in the day, which is really fun.
Yeah. It's a lovely cover, and I love the blues in it. It sort of makes you feel happy and peaceful.
Yes. Yeah, it's really, really nicely done. Let's see. Nancy says, yay, Anne. Got a fan.
Thank you, Nancy.
And then the Scales family would like to know what some of your favorite books growing up were.
Right. Favorite books, that's always the scary question, isn't it? Because I love a lot of books. I'm really omnivorous in what I read. And also I love them so much that I feel like I'm personally responsible for them in some way, So if I don't mention one that I also love, I feel
like you're going to hurt that book's feelings. Yeah.
But let's see. So when I was growing up, I loved all sorts of books. I loved fantasy books. I read all of the Oz books and the Narnia books, and these wonderful books by Jane Langton, Diamond in the Window, Swing in the Summer House. Oh, they're fantastic.
I don't know those books.
Oh, they're so good. And they have, and she was really into transcendentalism and Emerson and Thoreau. They're all set in Concord, Massachusetts. And,
nice.
So there are all these tie-ins to really kind of highfalutin philosophy. But as a kid, you just sort of, this is odd and interesting and magical, and you don't necessarily consciously see all the illusions, but they're fantastic. And what just came out? Phantom Tollbooth just came up recently.
I love that book.
I loved Lord of the Rings. I remember reading that. I was in a room with bunk beds with my sisters, and I remember reading the scary bits of Lord of the Rings by the nightlight, when I was little. And the Edward Eager books, Half Magic, all of those, loved those. I read all the time.
Yeah, maybe I should ask you which books you didn't like.
Right. Yeah,
I'm just kidding. You don't have to. You don't have to rat out any books you don't like.
Right. I guess every now and then you find something that's that doesn't hold your interest.
Sure.
Right.
Sure, of course. Nancy says, "How do I not know of these books living near Concord?"
Oh my gosh, Nancy. Okay, so you have to go. You have to read Diamond in the Window, and then actually, last time I looked is about 20 years ago, but last time I looked, the house that's a big part of those books is still standing in Concord, and you can find it, and it has this special kind of turrety with a hidden window in it. Anyway, you can go find it. It's so great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So one of my first questions when I hit the end of the book today was, this is about serial adventures. So there's going to be more, right? Like, I love these kids. I want to spend more time with them. So was this a multi-book deal? Are we waiting to see if people want more? Are you done?
Yeah, no. So this is a standalone.
Okay.
You'll notice that there's a sort of dialectical tension on the last page, because
Right.
the last 3 words of the texty part are "to be continued."
Right.
And then below that, you see 2 other words, which are "the end." So
cruel.
I would love to know more about their adventures too, and I have some ideas about what happens to them as they get a little bit older. It could be that someday because I think they're going to keep their creative partnership going as they grow up, and
yes,
it could be that they may show up as kind of incidental characters in something, right?
That's what I mean. This would be very atypical, but I'd be very happy to read a book 20 years after this written for adults with these same 2 characters. Like, you have a wealthy woman and an actress in the changing world of the 1930s. I would read that book.
I mean, honestly, like the 20s are really interesting in film history, and then the 30s are really interesting. And yeah.
It looks like others agree. So Elizabeth says, yes, more Darleen and Victorine, which is good. And then Diva is here with us today. Hey, Diva.
Hi, Diva.
Diva says, hi, Matt and Anne. I love all the historical details in this book. And do you have some favorite silent movies to recommend?
Right. Well, as I said, there's a silent movie out there for absolutely every viewer. So depending on what you like, there's a movie out there for you. So sometimes people ask, what are my silent favorite movies? But what they really mean are what are favorite
movies. Ones I will like.
What are ones that I would like or that my kids would like, right? And so I recommend different films to different people. One that I think is a crowd pleaser and will kind of convince the reluctant that silent movies can be fun is a Buster Keaton movie from 1924 called Sherlock Jr. And that is great. It has so many incredibly clever film tricks in it, and it's super funny. So I highly recommend that. There are, one of the secondary characters in my book is a real person, Alice Guy Blanchet, who was one of the first filmmakers in the world. She started in France in the 1890s, and then happened to be in Fort Lee, New Jersey, making films in 1914. So there are some films by her that are really fun to watch, and now more and more available. I went and checked online to see what's easy to find. One is The Drunken Mattress.
The Drunken Mattress.
The Drunken Mattress. So funny. And there's another, that's from her early French days. And another one from France is called The Glue, 1907, I think. Maybe 1908. And it's absolutely great. Now I'm checking to make sure I got that right. Yeah, 1907 is The Glue. She's been getting a lot more attention recently, so you can actually, they're like full compendia of her film.
Well,
but also another person, what? Yeah.
I was just going to say she makes like sort of a cameo in the book, but it's a pretty important one. Like she plays a pretty key role, actually.
I really wanted her in the story, partly because of this incredible coincidence that at the time of the serial films and so on, and there she was. But also because, again, these girls are trying to figure out how to kind of grow up and become the directors of their own lives. Both of them have come out of situations, although very different, filmmaking family and, poor little rich girl. You have people who've been bossed around a lot, right? Everyone has strong opinions about what they should do, how they should do it, and so on. But each one of them wants to kind of grow up and take charge herself in some way. And I thought, well, it'd be great to have them meet someone like Alice Guy Blaché, because she really had done it. Here was someone who was inventive and who could run a movie studio and make hundreds of films, and who was an innovator in sound film before anybody even thought that was a thing, and so on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
She comes in, she gets to play a fairly major minor role.
No, I mean, she makes the shape of the story possible, certainly. Yeah, which I think is really wonderful. Wow, that's amazing. So you do this isn't even your specialty. So your specialty is Russian film. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the first book I published was a book on an academic book for grown-ups about the Soviet filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, folks at home, if you have other questions about film or about the book, we would love to hear from you. Okay, the Scales family has another. They want to know how you got interested in silent films.
Right. Well, I guess I got into it through Russian and Soviet film. That a series of Russian films from before the revolution was shown first at this really big film festival, silent film festival, biggest silent film festival in the world, still going today, though maybe not this year, every year in Italy. And it turned out, when people thought of Russian films, they thought of the Soviet era films, especially films from the 20s and on, with, lots of quick montage and excitement and violence and so on. But it turned out that before the revolution, there was also this very active film industry in Russia, and they were making beautiful, amazing films. So I saw those, and I was working on Eisenstein, and Eisenstein starts off as a silent filmmaker. And so I started going to these huge silent film festivals, and I just fell completely in love with silent film, with the experience of being in a theater and having the most amazing musicians from around the world accompanying. They're improvising as they watch often, so they can watch a film and improvise to it, even when they haven't seen the film before.
Amazing.
Right? Some of them even play more than one instrument at once. So they'll be like playing the piano, then they'll hit the pedal, boom, and then they'll whip out the fiddle and start like playing violin stuff.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And they're what they're doing, right, is they're helping us experience the emotion, right? They're bringing us into the emotion of the piece. Is that what they're meant to be?
Right. I think it's actually even goes beyond emotion. And this is an experiment you can try yourself. If you look at a little silent film, maybe one of the very, very first silent films, like the little Lumiere tiny shorts, the arrival of the train in the station, these very early things that you see little clips of in films like Hugo. If you try those films with all sorts of different kinds of music, you'll find that you actually see different things in the image, depending on what soundtrack you're running with.
Oh, interesting.
I do this.
It draws your attention to different parts of what's happening.
Kind of amazing. Like if you have some shimmery music, I find I see what I focus on in that are the vague reflections of the people in the metal of the side of the train as it passes by. Other kinds of jugga, 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 jugga music is going to make you think about the engine, there's a train sound, and you see the wheels. It's really quite an extraordinary experience. And, it's great for anybody who's interested in becoming a filmmaker later.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it, how did it become a trope that a battle scene in a film now always is the one that has like slow-mo and sad music, like the touching sad music and slow-mo while they're all brutally attacking each other.
Uh-huh.
Well, those kinds of decisions were something that were already being experimented with at the beginning of film.
Huh. People
thinking about how to put image and sound together.
Right. That's so interesting. Wow. We're going to need to wrap up in a moment. There are a couple more comments here. So a question about, are silent films good on DVD? Or would you recommend catching it live?
Yeah. So, okay. I absolutely recommend at some point having a silent film experience live in a theater. Who knows when we get to do that next?
Right.
But the films are also really good watched on on your TV screen, and there are DVDs of the films, absolutely. And actually a surprising number are available on YouTube. I think I looked, all the ones that I mentioned are available on YouTube. And if you start looking there, you'll find more and more.
Yeah.
So
and it's literally every genre, right? Like you were saying, there's comedies, there's horror, romance,
there's funny family films, there's absolutely horror.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Caligari.
Yeah.
Right?
Science fiction, right? We've got like Metropolis,
Aelita, Queen of Mars, right? There, every possible kind of film.
Yeah.
Was already being made in the silent period.
Which is pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. Okay. So Anne Elizabeth says that Lumiere train film is astonishing. I'm sharing it on my blog on Monday.
Yay!
And looks like Nancy would like to know if Anne is going to play now. I think referring to the music.
Yeah, that's true. This is another thing tip for people watching at home. So you should put up a silent film, maybe a comedy, because it's kind of fun. You just put it up on your piano, and then you accompany it. That's
a really fun idea.
For the brain to improvise. I mean, you don't have to be a pianist in any sense, right? You just have to kind of let go, and you look at the image, and you sort of see what you can make up to go with it. And it's so much fun. I've done this with kids, and it's really a hoot.
I love that. That's really wonderful. Okay, so the book is Daring Darleen, Queen of the Screen. It is delightful. You should absolutely go get a copy. Tell your library to get a copy. Tell your friends to get copies. And I've got your website at the bottom of the screen there. Where else would you want to send people?
I'm on Twitter and Facebook and even sort of Instagram. Always Anne Nesbet. The name is the same everywhere. Oh, and I've got actually now, because of the whole launching a book during the COVID or whatever. Yeah. I'm in a lot of videos that you can find on YouTube and other places, but I made a book trailer, which was innovative for me because I teach film. I don't usually make it. And I did another one on historical research for this book. And there are a couple of other conversations that are available.
Oh, that's amazing.
There. So yeah, we're all forced into this sort of newly two-dimensional life.
Right. Yes. Well, everybody, be sure to check out this book. I was telling Anne before we started, I don't understand if this doesn't get made into a movie or a TV show even. I don't understand. It's really delightful, and Hollywood people love making things about Hollywood, so you would think It'd be on their
Or
short
even
list.
the non-Hollywood, pre-Hollywood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, exactly.
right.
And we didn't really mention this, but it's been getting starred reviews basically everywhere that does reviews. Everyone loves this book, which is really, it's not common to get tons of starred reviews. Like sometimes
No,
people, I got one and you're excited, but you've
right.
gotten 5, 6,
Four.
4.
That's
No,
not
5. Well,
exactly.
I also give you a starred review, so we're at least at 5.
Well, there you go.
So,
No,
well,
it makes me very happy.
yeah, it's really wonderful. Well, next week we're going to have Lindsay Franklin with us, who's a young adult fantasy novelist. So come hang out with us and Lindsay next week. Anne, it's been a delight to have you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much, Matt. This really made my day.
Oh, I'm glad. Really appreciate it. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend and be safe out there.